So with the 200 celebration next week, Pastor Ivy's pulling out all the stops, wanted 2 of us today. So I'm Jason Henry, I'm back. I was here a few weeks ago, and I talked about the history of the Methodist, then the United Methodist Church here in Canfield. So I had to figure out what I was going to talk about today. So I decided I'd touch on some of the specific changes at this site over the last 112 years. I think it's important that we remember that the green hasn't always looked like it does today. There was still a green, streets on both sides, but the church used to have neighbors. There were houses on both sides, and that was before we built the house, which is now the annex in the 1930s. There were houses between the church and, well, the Dairy Queen wasn't there yet, it was just houses. Now, I remember back in the 70s, there were a couple of houses, and then there were 2 dairy stores over on each side of Scott Street there. But in the 1970s, the houses were torn down, and it became just a yard, eventually the parking lot. But while I was growing up, there was a big tree, there was a swing set, we could play out there during Sunday school. But in the 1980s, we had outgrown the space, we needed to expand, so we had a social to celebrate and raise funds, and the picture you see is in the yard that would become the atrium. And that brought us to the facility we have now. But the stone, the brick facade, excuse me, with the stained glass windows that overlooked the green were the same in 1909 as they are now. But how we view those windows has certainly changed over the years. When the church was built, it was in the Akron style. Now, Akron style actually is a thing. It started in a church in Akron, but multiple denominations across the United States and beyond all use the Akron style sanctuary. Now, for our church, that meant that we faced north-south. No, it was this way. The church faced the loft. The windows in front of you were at the side, at the end of the pews. There was a big pipe organ. The choir sat up in the loft as they do now. Sunday school would be right here. The men sat on one side, the women sat on the other. In this picture, the wall behind them doesn't even exist anymore. But the Akron configuration went out of style, so we remodeled the sanctuary into the east-west configuration that we have now. The platform in front had a prayer rail, there was a pulpit, there was a full lectern. It turns out that if you're the person giving the talk and you're an AV person, you can pretty much put whatever picture up there you want. So whether your wife and kids know about it or not, in this case, my wife did the picture, so the wedding picture's okay, I'm good with that one. But other than a color change, it looked pretty much this way for over 40 years, until in 2008 we decided to remodel again. They didn't know about that either. And we remodeled the front, the platform, made a bunch of changes to the sanctuary, the building, the configuration, as we have it now. Now this is all well and good. If you're a history person, you love to see it, talk about it, it's awesome. But there had to be something else. So I went to Pastor Ivy and I said, what do you want to know about the history of our church? Because she's about the newest person here. She knows less than all of you about the history of the church. And she gave me some pretty good advice. She wanted to know, what have we done? What has our church done over the years that has impacted our community? Hey, that's an easy question, right? No, that's an impossible question. There's turkey dinners. There's the dinners before the concert on the green. We've had fish fries, ham dinners, breakfasts, brunch, plum pudding festival. We had the bazaar, a huge deal. There was a luncheon at the bazaar. So apparently our history can be traced back over all the meals we've served over the years. So I've been going to this church for almost 50 years. So when I try to stop and think about all that we've done as a church in our community over just my 50 years, when we get beyond the dinners, it became pretty hard. I mean, where do I stop? Apparently, I could just talk for hours and hours. Don't worry, I'll just give a couple examples. So when I was a youth here at the church, our church sponsored a family to come from Canfield from Cambodia. I don't remember any of the details as to how or why or any of that. I was a kid. I remember hanging out with their kids and just having fun, remembering how comfortable they were in bare feet, that they drank coffee. Now, in today's society, with Starbucks and Dunkin', kids drinking coffee is not a big deal. But back then, a kid that drank coffee, even if it was mostly cream and sugar, I mean, that was amazing. I remember recycling. So recycling didn't just come to the end of your driveway every 2 weeks and pick the stuff up. You had to take it to recycle. And the recycling pickup was in the back parking lot of the United Methodist Church. There were volunteers, most of them from the church, that would unload your car, take your newspapers. Everybody had newspapers. Load them into the truck. If you were a scout, you could get some service time. There was the live nativity. And when I say live, it was live. There were animals. There was a camel. Who gets a camel in Canfield? There was Vacation Bible School, mission trips, youth mission trips that shaped the young people of the church. But not just youth. There were adult mission trips. They go to Mississippi and places that needed help. Or maybe it was that time when you may have been too sick to go to school, but not too sick to be dragged to UMW, so you could hear the speaker, who was an educator from Haiti, talking about his time there. And he may have given a young man a memento to help him remember service. And all of this just scratches the surface. There are a lot of things that I remember. There's a lot of things that I don't remember. There's a lot of things I didn't even know about. And that would only be going back 1/4 of the history of this church, which means that it must be about more than just my memories or Wendy's memories or any of your memories, because our memories, at least mine, aren't what they used to be. And it turns out that some of these things are not written down. Somebody may not have taken a picture for posterity. Now, don't get me wrong, memories are important, and I cherish all of mine. But if we don't remember it, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen, because all of the outreach, the activities, the actions, they all happened. And the history of a church, of this church, is about the impact that it has, about how all of those actions from all of the people over generations make the memories. And that impact is the legacy of our 200 years. Thank you.